I make sure we're on time. I'm in the office 2 hours before patients start. I get everything ready. The girls are here before patients start. And I don't keep, if you look at some of the comments on my Instagram, you'll see a couple people even comment that they never have to wait.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Geoffrey Kwitko. He's a board certified and fellowship trained oculoplastic and neuro-ophthalmic surgeon specializing in oculoplastic, cosmetic, and reconstructive eyelid surgery. With 31 years of experience, he's been practicing in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now, Dr. Kwitko is a member of several medical associations and past president of the Tampa Bay Ophthalmologic Society. He's also a clinical assistant professor of ophthalmology at the University of South Florida, where he teaches young surgeons the art and science of eye surgery. Now, Dr. Kwitko has published numerous articles in peer-reviewed journals and medical textbooks, as well as being an international lecturer. He routinely teaches courses at the American Academy of Ophthalmology's annual meeting. He also founded and is the editor-in-chief of the electronic journal of the Neuro-Ophthalmic Surgical Society. I have never had to say ophthalmology so many times in so many different ways. Dr. Kwitko, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Oh, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Okay, absolutely. So let's just start with, how did you end up in such a specialized specialty?
Well, my father was one of the pioneers of intraocular lens implants in Canada. He implanted the first intraocular lens in 1965, I believe, was the first in Canada to do it, and was one of the founding members of the societies that did it. So I knew from a young age that I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. My father was so famous that before he passed away, he was knighted by the Queen and for his contributions to ophthalmology. But I always knew I wanted to be an ophthalmologist, and it wasn't until my second year of residency that I met two of my professors who specialized in oculoplastic and neuro-ophthalmology. My father was a cataract and a glaucoma specialist, and this was different. This was something that I wasn't never really exposed to, and really liked it. And it would probably have been nice to do something a little different from my dad. And ended up getting a fellowship in oculoplastics and neuro-ophthalmology, and it was a fantastic year. Learned a lot, had a wonderful time, and that's how I ended up doing oculoplastics, orbit, and neuro-ophthalmology.
And then how did you end up leaving Canada and ending up in Tampa Bay, Florida?
Well, I actually went back to Montreal where my father was in practice and spent a year with him. And the Canadian healthcare system is set up so that to save money, because everything at that time was through the government knew exactly how many operating rooms they could afford, how many wards in a hospital they can afford. And when they went over budget, they would just close operating rooms or close wards. And it was impossible to get surgical time because as a young doctor. And I had patients, and this is after I had spent 4 years in Detroit treating patients. And then I go back to Montreal, and for instance, to get an MRI, I had a patient who would need an MRI. Well, I knew in Detroit, where I did my training, I could get it the next day. It was no big deal. Montreal was maybe 3, 4 weeks to get an MRI, and that's just unacceptable for a country like Canada, the United States. But one lady in particular, she was a sweet old lady, and she had an infected tear sac, and she had pus running down her face because the pus from the tear sac, and it would taken me 20 minutes in the operating room to fix her, and we couldn't get her in for 6 months. And I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. And if you go through any hospital in Canada, you will see that a large percentage of the ORs are used as storage rooms because they can't afford to keep them open. So everybody who is in line for that operating room has to get in line, and it's basically ration care. And I said, I can't practice like this. I'm too obsessive compulsive and OCD to wait 3 months for an MRI or 6 months to get to fix a problem. And I said to my dad, I said, "Listen, I have to get out of here. It's ridiculous." And so filled out a bunch of applications, came down, joined a big cataract group, spent a year there, and then decided to go off on my own. And that's what I did. Went off on my own and have been happy ever since.
So you had 1 year of being on your own, 1 year with your father. Did you know how to open a practice?
Well, in the Canada's easy because you just build a government for everything.
Oh,
That's not difficult. They pay you nothing, but that's Canada. And um, so when I came down here, I worked again for a cataract surgeon in North Florida and learned the system. And I had all intentions of staying with the in that big practice as their oculoplastics person, but I just wasn't happy working for someone else. And after a year, my contract was up. I said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to open my own practice. I think I'm good enough and personable enough that I would do well on my own." So I went out and I visited all the other general ophthalmologists in the area, and some were very kind, and some were not so kind, and but opened my practice with 1991 actually, and it's just grown ever since.
is that the building you're in now?
No, no, no. I rented an office. This is my third office. I rented an office in a medical building, and then moved to a smaller office about 5 or 6 years after that. And then in 2012, built the office I'm in right now, and have been there ever since.
And tell me you own the land and the building.
I own the land and the building.
Smartest move you've ever made. That everybody on this podcast says the biggest mistake I ever made was not buying a place when I had a chance.
Well, when I rented my first office, I rented it and I was paying rent, and I'm going, I'm just, losing this. And the company that was overseeing the building were kind of shady. Every year they would say, "Oh, it's time for the overage," and they'd send me a bill for thousands, and we'd say, "Well, where did you spend this money? I mean, with the amount of money that you're charging us, we should have a pool and a bar in the back of the building." And they were very secretive about it. I said, "Well, with what I'm paying, I can have a mortgage." And so I actually bought an old crack house a couple blocks away and tore it down, and ended up building my first office there. And then a few years after that, I was driving by this land, and it was like prime real estate, prime corner in South Tampa. And there was a hand painted sign for sale, drove past it, and called my wife, and I said, "You know that land you're always talking?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "There's a for sale sign." She said, "Buy it." So I called it, and apparently the lady who lived here for years passed away, and I guess her kids just wanted to get their money out of it, so it was a ridiculously low price. And I said, "Fine, here you go." And we bought it, and then waited a few years and put my building on it, and we were renting out my old office.
Congratulations. How big is it, and was it too big for you at the time and now too small, or is it just right?
No, I think we're fine now. I think I have like 3,500, 4,000 square feet, and a bunch of examining rooms, a bunch of testing rooms, and we seem to be pretty good. I think it's a perfect size for us. I even have a little gym in here.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's great. Did you have a surgical suite as well?
No, I thought about opening an OR, and you see these stories every now and then where a terrible thing happens in the doctor's OR, and the news gets a hold of it. And it just always bothered me that if something happened while I was operating, people could have heart attacks or strokes or whatever, pulmonary emboli. You have to call 911 like everybody else. And I said, "No, you know what? I'm going to associate with, I bought shares in a surgery center where they have board certified anesthesiologists, and they pass all the state and federal requirements. And I'm happy to let them deal with all the aggravation."
Is it nearby at least?
Oh, yeah, it's just down the street.
Good. By the
Yeah.
way, as the doctors get older, they want a less commute. Do you have a pretty good commute?
Oh, it's 8 minutes from home.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So, are you the only revenue producer, or did you decide to bring on more people or providers?
I thought about taking on an associate, and the downside of that is most of these partnerships don't work out. I've seen it over the years. Number two, I'd have to get somebody who wants to work as hard as me. And to be honest with you, I don't know anybody who works as hard as me, and it would piss me off. I'm in the office at 5 o'clock, and they go home at 3, or they want this much time off. And residents these days being trained, it's a whole different ballgame. They're not supposed to work over a certain number of hours. Um, and I remember I went up to the university once to give a lecture, and the lecture before me was the director, the residency director, pleading with the residents to rate them well for their accreditation. And I'm looking at this and going, when I was a resident, no one really cared what I thought. It was you work, work, work. And my final year, when I was a fellow, which I have to say was an amazing year, enjoyed every second of it. I was working 24/7, 360. The only time I had a weekend off when my grandmother passed away, and my professor let me go into the funeral, but I had to bring back a death certificate. But that we had a little twisted relationship between the two of us. But and I said, "You got it. I'll bring the death certificate. No vacation at all." And now they want time off. I think they're training doctors to be more shift workers these days. You come in, you do your shift, you leave, and you're off. That's not what medicine is. Medicine's 24/7. And at least the way I was brought up and the way I was trained. So taking on an associate now would be very difficult for me because, like I said, I think the people training now um, just don't have the same work ethic. Additionally, you don't know what the quality is. You bring in an associate, your quality is on the line. And, nobody's going to, if you talk to their professors, where they train, they're not going to badmouth anybody because, they want to get rid of them. So, no, I'm going to stay working on my own. I'm very happy doing it.
I understand
Yep.
completely. Yes, I've heard every scenario, and usually it does not work out very well for all
Yep.
sorts of reasons. So if you
Yep.
don't have to do it, I wouldn't add that complexity if you don't have to.
Absolutely not for me. I'm a workaholic. I get up in the morning. I still look forward to going to the office,
Nice.
and I'm not willing to put my reputation on the line with a stranger. And that's basically what you're doing.
Hello there. Quick pause to ask you if you have gaps in your practice draining your time, profits, and peace of mind. If so, I can help you streamline, grow, and take the guesswork out of your practice. Book your practice growth strategy review at catherinemaley.com and let's turn those gaps into growth. Now, back to the podcast. So, where does cosmetic plastic surgery fit into your world?
Well, we're doing more and more cosmetic. I would say probably we're now 40% cosmetic, 60% reconstructive, and it's
Nice.
building all the time. Word of mouth, and I'll tell you, it's internet, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Years ago, I used to do well, first of all, I used to never advertise. I hated advertising. And then maybe 20 years ago, another oculoplastic surgeon moved about 2 blocks from me, and he was a hustler, still is a hustler, is always, took all my referral sources out for lunch or out for dinner, offers free skincare. He has a spa, also offers free skincare. And he's a hard worker too. If I was going to hire anybody, I'd hire him. He seems to work very hard. But so I had to advertise. And so we did traditional advertising, newspaper, magazines. And then, I started looking around and noticed everybody had their heads buried in their phone. And, what are they looking at? Well, Facebook, Instagram. I don't think TikTok existed back then. So I started, going on Facebook and Instagram. And what do people wanna see? They wanna see before and afters. That's all they wanna see. They wanna see, I don't think they're interested in seeing intraoperative pictures. It's, the old thing, "I'll eat the hot dog, but I don't wanna see how it's made." And I see a lot of surgeons, they're putting operative photos, and I don't think people want, they wanna see the befores and afters and see how good the afters look, and that really has done well for me. And, so again, like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok are really, that's the way to go. That's the name of the game these days.
And was this to promote cosmetic, or were you also doing it for general
Well,
ophthalm?
cosmetic, reconstructive, basically skin cancers, and a lot of thyroid eye disease. Because a
Mm,
lot of people, who have thyroid, they don't know that it can be treated. And a lot of people don't know they have thyroid disease. They're just walking around, their eyes hurt, they're dry, irritated, and they don't know. I see so many people who come in to see me for dry eye, and they end up having thyroid disease. And there's a whole bunch we can do for thyroid patients to make them look better and feel better. And, just putting that out there on social media, that, I don't even advertise in newspapers. Nobody reads newspapers anymore. I
right.
wouldn't even know where to get one.
So are you pretty good at taking, let's say, a thyroid patient, you fix the dry eye and now they want a bleph? Does that happen very often?
Yeah, I mean, if they've lid retraction or exposure and their eyes dry, we'll fix that. If they want a bleph, we'll do it. You have to be very conservative doing blephs on thyroid patients. So it's sort of imperative that if you're a thyroid patient and you want a bleph, you really shouldn't go to a general plastic surgeon. You should go to an oculoplastic surgeon because you really have to keep in mind the function of the eyelids and their relationship with the eye. And a general plastic surgeon really doesn't have that expertise.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in specialization. I
Yeah.
like to go to somebody who's done, thousands of blephs, not just, 10 a year.
I started looking at my numbers and I said, I've got to be close to 100,000 cases over the year. I don't know if anybody's even close to that. Maybe, but I don't know.
You might want to make a big deal out of that on your website, you know?
Yeah, probably done more than anybody else.
Yeah, we only have 2 eyes and I would, take care of them, you know?
right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so let's talk about your staff because you've been around for 31 years, so you've had a lot of staff. Any
Yeah, oh,
tips
yeah. Well,
there?
not
Any
I actually haven't had a lot of staff. Most of my staff when I first opened, I hired a wonderful young lady who really wanted to work for the FBI, but she was on a waiting list. I interviewed a bunch of people, and she ended up working for me for a year and was fantastic. And then she got a job with the FBI. So we hired my second secretary, who was from the hospital, and she's been with me since 91, 92.
Oh,
I mean, we're growing old together.
mhm.
And she recently retired, but she's still part time. She comes in 3 or 4 days a week to deal with insurance problems. And then, we had to hire more people. And I found that putting ads in was useless because you could have 5 people scheduled for a day, 3 will not show up. And the other two are, I just never came across anybody that I hired. However, at the hospital, my next employee was the girl who ran the coffee shop at or the coffee bar at the hospital. And I would get there early at 6:30, and she was always there. And when I left, she was always there, which showed me she was a hard worker. And I hired her. And she's been with me. I think I hired her when she was 18. She's now 42, 43. And so that's how I hired her. And then I hired her friend. And, then we needed a couple more, so I hired one of them was a patient, and she came in, and she was very well-spoken, perfect for a plastic surgeon's office, and she worked for a lawyer at the time, and I offered her a job just because, you get a feeling for somebody, and she's been with me probably 10 years, and at the same time, I hired one of the girl's sisters, and she's been with me 10 years. Now, recently, we hired 2 new girls, and they've been with me, I guess one's been with me a couple of years and one's about 6 months. But most of my staff has been with me for over 10 years, 20 years.
Nice,
And the key is if they're good, pay them well,
right?
and that's what I do.
One of the challenges, though, is when you are in the recon business, oftentimes the mentality of the staff is more about the patient with the insurance card, and there's not the customer service level that a credit card patient needs. Who's coming in for customer service and boutique and wants to feel special. How are you handling that?
Well, they just seem to deal well with it. I mean, it's not something I've ever had to address or talk to them. They just seem to know how to deal with patients. Every now and then you'll get somebody who's crazy and there's nothing you can do to make them happy and that I consider my screen. If somebody is like that and that high maintenance, I don't want to operate on them. And one of the keys to this business is spotting those patients. And the ones that are ultra difficult, if you can, I don't want to use the term get rid of them, but maybe turn them off so they go elsewhere before you do surgery on them, it's a blessing in disguise. Because some of these patients are especially in cosmetics, you get patients coming in. So the patient who comes in who wants to be wined and dined and, and oh, here's a nice Cabernet while you're waiting and blah, blah, blah. I don't really want those patients. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I had a patient, and I dress in scrubs all day long. I had a patient who had an optic neuritis, and basically I cured him. He was blind, made him 20/20. And he was sitting in the waiting room, and I overheard the conversation. And the guy next to him, who was a new patient, said to him, I don't like this doctor. He doesn't wear a coat and tie. And the patient that I helped said, he saved me from going blind. He can wear a clown suit and I wouldn't care. And I think that's the important thing is the quality, the skill of the surgeon. And if you're that hung up on being pampered, maybe I'm not the right fit for you. And it's held me well over the years.
What about the waiting issue?
Nobody waits in my office.
How is that possible?
Because I don't like to wait. I don't like to be behind schedule. It makes me crazy. I get people in. Now, everybody gets the amount of time that they deserve, but I make sure we're on time. I'm in the office 2 hours before patients start. I get everything ready. The girls are here before patients start. And I don't keep, if you look at some of the comments on my Instagram, you'll see a couple people even comment that they never have to wait.
I'm so glad to hear that because a patient with a credit card doesn't want to wait. They don't need to be the queen. They don't, but they want to be respected of their time.
No, nobody waits for me, whether they're a credit card, whether they're insurance, nobody waits for me. And, it's funny because I operate at a surgery center where there's a couple other doctors. And for some reason, they like to bitch to me about everybody else and saying, this guy makes them wait. This guy shows up an hour late, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I don't know why you're telling me this. I guess maybe they're hoping I'll tell him. And I'm not saying it. It's none of my business. But, it shows no respect for the patient, no respect for the staff. And it doesn't shows no respect for yourself. I mean, who the hell do you think you are that you can keep people waiting 2 hours? That the old God complex people talk about with doctors. And we're not God. And we're just here trying to do the best we can and respect for your staff, respect for your patients, and respect for yourself is paramount. And people see that.
You must be really good at scheduling. Like, how many people do you see a day?
We probably have 6 new patients in a half day, a whole bunch of post-ops, a whole bunch of follow-ups. But I have an amazing staff. They know how to schedule them, they know how to space them apart, and they know how to get them in and out of the rooms. And like I said, they've been with me a long time. Most of my staff has been with me over 10 years. So they know the tricks and they figured it out over the years. I didn't even have to teach them. They taught me. They figured it out.
Do you have a cosmetic patient coordinator?
Nope. Everybody in my office can do everything. They schedule surgery, they answer the phone, they consult on, pre and post-op care, and they're all interchangeable, and everybody trains everybody. And, let's say somebody's out sick or somebody's not here, anybody can fill in. We had a 3-month period where 2 of my secretaries were both pregnant at the same time and were delivered, and that was a rough couple of months, but, we managed, and everybody, pitched in, and like I said, everybody can do everybody's job here. And retention is key with me because, once you have good people, you don't wanna let them go.
For sure. Do you have any kind of incentive plan, motivational?
I pay them well. They get paid more than the average by a lot. So I know if they left me, they wouldn't get paid as much. And that's, ultimately you're responsible for yourself and your family. I mean, it can be the greatest work environment, but if you're not getting paid, you're not going to stick around. But if you have a great work environment, you get along well with your coworkers, your boss treats you well and pays you well, where are you going to go? Why would you want to go anywhere else?
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's switch over to the marketing side. You mentioned one competitor. Has it gotten a lot more competitive all as the years have gone by? Is that
Well,
growing?
when I first came to Tampa, and the reason I picked Tampa, I was in Montreal, and my reasoning for coming here was I want somewhere warm. I was sick of shoveling driveways in the winter,
Mhm.
and I knew Florida because we'd come down every Christmas and Easter as a kid. We used to go to Miami. Well, not Miami. We went to Hollandale, and but there were about 5 or 6 oculoplastic surgeons along the East Coast, whereas on the West Coast there was only one. There was only one oculoplastics practice, so it seemed all right. Go there. So, I opened my office and he was in the north end of town, so I opened my office in the south end of town, because it's a smarter business move and it didn't want to piss him off. It would, aggravate him if I opened up a block from him. And I was the only game in South Tampa for years. Then this other guy opened up a block for me in South Tampa. I never got the the respect that I gave the other guy, but it's a free country. You can do what you want. And now every big practice hires an oculoplastic surgeon. Every large cataract surgeon, they've got a glaucoma guy, they've got a plastics guy. They don't have a neuro guy, but I think they make the plastics guy do their neuro. I was talking to a few of them, and they're pissed off because they're not comfortable doing neuro because they weren't trained in it. But the owners of the practice don't like patients leaving the practice for whatever reason. They want to keep all the patients in house, but they all have their own plastics person. So I get my patients really from social media, a lot of optometry referrals, and a lot of word of mouth. And because if you go to a large eye clinic and you need a bleph, they're going to send it to their bleph guy.
Right.
Now, I've had a lot of patients who come to see me after they've been referred to one of the in-house bleph guys and said, "No, I heard of you and I want to come to you." And that happens as you gain a reputation. And being in Tampa for about 35 years, I guess I have one that's pretty good. People tell me that, anyways.
So where would you say a lot of your leads are coming from? You say social media, is it also word of mouth and advertising?
Tons from word of mouth, tons from word of mouth. I mean, that's the way it used to be in medicine before you could advertise. But social media and word of mouth are the two big places.
How much time are you spending on social media?
Not a lot, and you know what? It's easy. I patients come in, we take their before and after pictures. I post it on social media, and that's it. Write a few words. Here's this patient. They love their results. Hashtag my phone number and all that other hashtag crap. And I have no idea if it does any good. They all tell me you got to do hashtags, so I do hashtags, and and that's it. It's not very difficult. I mean, I'll sit and, watch the news and post the pictures from that day. I started doing videos recently. Well, not so, maybe over the last couple of months, which are kind of fun. Saturday mornings, I go for a walk on Bayshore with my wife, and we think of topics. And then at the end of the walk, we'll do my Saturday morning Bayshore talk, and everything from ptosis to blephs, upper lid blephs, laser resurfacing. The last one we did was about Medicare Advantage plans because these patients who sign up for them have no idea what they're signing up for all the time. They call and say, "Yeah, I have Medicare," and they end up having an Advantage plan, and we can't see them because they didn't get authorization. And they said, "No, no, I still have my Medicare." And I go, "No, no, you don't." So that was one thing we did, and yeah, and then I do videos. I did one the other day on lumps and bumps on the eyelid, that end up being cancer. So jump on those as quickly as you can. Just helpful things for patients. They seem to like it. I did one on will your insurance cover? It's funny. I did this. Will your insurance cover your blepharoplasty? And about a week or two after that, I saw 5 other oculoplastic surgeons did a video. Will your insurance cover your blepharoplasty? So, I guess, you get good ideas, and I get ideas from other doctors too. So, watching their social media. So, it's everybody contributes, I guess.
Well, video's where it's at, so I'm glad you have embraced it because it's really what you need to do in today's world to gain attention. You've
It's
got
fun to
30,000
do.
followers, so good for you. You're doing something right.
Yeah, it's fun to do also.
How are you getting those photo consents? Everyone's always complains to me, "I can't get my patients to approve my the photo."
What I do is, in part of their package, they
Mhm.
sign a consent. Now, some people don't sign it, and we make a notation if they don't, and that's fine. And then what I'll do is when I see them for their post-op visit, I'll show them their before and after, and I'll ask them. I said, "Do you mind if I use your photos on social media?" And I tell them it'll just be a bar across your eyes. Nobody'll know it's you. I would say 98% of the patients say, "Absolutely. Go ahead and do it." Nobody, 1 or 2 have said they'd rather not, and that's fine. But most patients, the vast majority, as a matter of fact, some are disappointed when they say, "Hey, I didn't see my before and after on your page." So, yeah, most people, I do not have a problem getting those.
All right, let me give you one little tidbit. I would say, do you mind if I show your photos online? And if they give you a little resistance, well, what if I cropped it a bit? And then if they give you more resistance, well, then what if I added the bar, the eye
Right,
bar? The
right.
problem is we patients want to see the whole darn thing. We
Yeah,
we don't want to see the blind bar.
well, no, it's not a bar, it's just well, you've seen my before and afters,
Yeah,
it's like
I'm
from
just
here.
telling you, it's so
Yeah.
much more authentic when we can see the whole face. So I
Alright.
would I wouldn't start with it. I would just use it as, well, can I at least do it with the eye bar?
Right.
Like, because
But,
I think
but I don't like to be too pushy about it. I don't,
correct.
if the patient is hesitant, I leave it alone. I don't wanna be that
Mhm.
guy where I'm pushing them. If they don't want it, I'm gonna go, "That's fine. I've got plenty that I can use." So,
Well, if you really wanna soup it up now, you have to interview your patients as well.
well,
And
actually, I've done that on a couple. I did it on one guy, one couple actually. The guy had double vision, and we did scans on him, and the scan and he got his scans done at the leading cancer institute in Tampa, and the scan was read as normal. And I took a look at it and said, "There's a big tumor over there." And so I said, "Let's get another scan to be sure." And there it was. And I sent him back to the cancer institute with a big circle around the tumor and said, "What's this?" And so I interviewed that couple. It was a very nice elderly man and his sweet wife, and they were very sweet. And I actually have an interview coming up with a young lady who years ago was a victim of domestic abuse. Her husband bit her eyelids off, and we put her back together, and she looks great, and she's forever. So she's coming in one of these days to do a testimonial. And I actually have a commercial that I've been running for like 20 years, which is a one of the nurses at the surgery center and one of the doctors that I did blephs on. And that's a great commercial. You can probably find it somewhere on my social media.
I saw a commercial on your homepage, I think, but I don't remember it was like an ad. I think it's an ad you did, a video ad you did a long time
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. It's there somewhere. It's on my Instagram page if you scroll through it. And one of the things that, really I promote is at the surgery center where I work and other oculoplastics, my, main competitor also works at the surgery center. But every staff member and doctor who's had their bleph done who works there has picked me to do it, which and I promote that on my Instagram page all the time. And I tell people, and I said, if you know, most people go to 2 or 3 doctors, they get 2 or 3 opinions before they're blessed. And I say, listen, you don't know who to go to. I said, you call the surgery center, ask to talk to the nurses and the techs who are actually in the room with the doctors, and they'll tell you who's good. And I've had a lot of people say that's a great idea. Some people said, "Oh, they'll never say anything bad about anybody." I said, "You don't ask them to say anything bad. You just ask them if you were get who would you get to do your bleph?" And
Mhm.
they'll tell you. And I do that when I need surgery or a family member needs surgery. I will call the hospital and I say, "I want to speak to the nurse in the room with Doctor So and so." And or I want to speak to somebody in this room to find out. And they'll be honest with you. They'll tell you who's good, and they will tell you who to stay away from
Mhm.
because they're there with the doctors and they see it. So and I use that in my ads. I have a couple pictures of me with the entire staff of the surgery center, and it says if you need to know who to go to, call the surgery center, talk to the techs, talk to the nurses. They'll tell you.
They're the best referral sources, they really
Well,
are.
they're there. They see the doctors, they see who handles complications well, they see who handles stress well, they see who treats their patients well. They'll tell you who's good and who's bad. So, or who's mediocre.
Give me the craziest patient or staff story you care to share.
All right. I thought about this. I had a patient probably about 3 months ago, and he was sent to me because he was having some visual disturbances. He had seen an optometrist. The optometrist said, "Your eyes are fine." Then he sent him to an ophthalmologist who said, "Your eyes are fine, but maybe you may be having mini stroke. So start your anticoagulation again." And then he referred him to me. And he told me the story. We did some testing. I said, "You're having strokes." I said, "You will walk out of here and go to the hospital now, right now." And he goes to the hospital, and they found out as he had a heart dysrhythmia and a thrombus in his heart. And they took care of him. Basically, we either saved his life or prevented him from having a huge stroke.
Oh.
And I see him a week later, and I walked into the rooms, big smile on my face. I said, "I guess we saved your life," thinking he would have been thrilled. And he was sort of dour, "Well, yeah, well, And I said, "All right, maybe that's his personality." He then goes on Yelp and writes a 1-star review, a 1 star. And his reason was that when I walked in the room, I didn't ask him how he was doing. And I said, I still have his review on my bulletin board. It's absolutely, I saved this guy's life and he gives me a one-star review. So my comment, well, you can comment after these things. I said, well, considering the fact that we saved your life or prevented a big stroke, maybe I can get 2 stars. And left it. And then he responded all, pissed off at me. He said, "You didn't save my life. The doctor who put me on the anticoagulate." I said, "Yeah, well, I was the only one who said there's something going on here. Go to the hospital after two previous doctors." But you're not going to win that. If he was going to give me a 1 star for that, there was no way I was going to win an argument, and I just sort of let it die. But
Oh,
I told everybody that. I said, "You believe this guy?"
yeah. Well, there you go. That's the public you're working with.
That's the public,
So,
So
what would you say is the biggest challenge of running your own solo practice?
Time. Time is difficult. I mean, I end up doing a lot of work that otherwise I wouldn't have to, and I'm very hands-on. I have to be involved in everything. Fortunately, I have a group of people I can trust who work with me. My wife works in the office. She comes in, makes her own hours, but she handles the problems and is an amazing organizer. I mean, she's got charts and tables and sheets. I don't even know what the hell's in there, but she gets the job done. So she is a huge help. And I guess you could say we're a sort of a mom and pop business.
Mhm.
And but just time and managing your time and getting everything done.
Well, speaking about your wife, when I was on Instagram, how long have you been together?
We are going to celebrate our 40th anniversary this June.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I met her. She was 17. I was 23. And she lied to me. She said she was 18, but 6 years isn't, I mean, now we're 6 years apart, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But the smartest, most wonderful, sweetest person, great head on her shoulder, great organization, amazing mother. I mean, I got lucky and absolutely drop dead gorgeous.
Oh, congratulations.
And still gorgeous to this day. Gets better looking every year.
Well, she has a real sweet persona about her. She seems kind.
Oh, absolutely. You're not going to meet a nicer person who will go out of her way for anybody.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So usually I say, like, tell us something we don't know about you. So I'm gonna go with the hockey. What's with you in hockey?
Well, I grew up in Montreal,
Oh, of
and
course.
and everybody, when you hit 2 or 3, they put skates on you. Now, when I was growing up, I really wasn't a hockey player, I was a skier, and I skied every weekend. You grow up in Montreal, you're either a really good skier or a really good hockey player, and I was a
Mhm,
pretty good skier. And then when I came down here, I hadn't played hockey probably since I was 12,
mhm,
and I said, I got to start getting into some exercise. I'm getting older, and I mean, let's face it, golf is, you take in, you don't burn calories playing golf. As a matter of fact, you probably take in calories with the cart girl and the food and the booze. And so I wanted to do that, and I always liked playing hockey. So I was driving down one of the highways, and I saw they were opening an ice rink, a hockey rink. And so I walked in and I said, "Yeah, I'd like to play hockey." And they had all these teams, so I signed up, and I've been playing hockey ever since. I guess first it was an over 35 league, and
yeah,
now it's an over 50 league. I'm trying to get them to start an over 60 league because these 50-year-old kids are getting
mhm,
harder to chase. But the fun part was I got to play with my children because my
oh,
children, when they were young, they played hockey, and I was their coach for a while. And then when
mhm,
they turned 18, I got to play in the same league with them, which was an absolute hoot. And the kids I played with on that team, they were all kids that I coached when they were little, and they all had my back. Somebody tried to check me, they
mhm.
would go after them and beat the crap out of them. It's a great sport, and the people you meet are wonderful who play hockey. They're just very down to earth people, no pretension about them, and just wonderful people. So I played. I actually took about a year off, and I went back yesterday. I played yesterday for the first time in about a year, and it was like I didn't
Mm.
skip a beat. It was just wonderful people that I play with and made good friends over the years. A lot of them I've been playing with probably for 35 years.
Wow, everyone
Yeah.
still have their teeth?
No, some do, some don't. I broke my leg about 20 years ago. I had a tib-fib fracture.
Ooh,
They had to put a plate in, so I was out of commission for about 6 months. But I had a
oy.
great orthopedic surgeon who got me back up and running, and I've been fortunate since. Tore an ACL over the years, ripped my bicep tendon. off.
Jeez.
But, you know, it's part of the game.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
We're going to wrap it up now. It was so nice to talk with you. If somebody did want to get a hold of you, I know your website is quitco.com, spelled Kwitko.com, right?
right, right.
And then
Or look at my Instagram
yeah,
page.
Instagram is Quitco MDFACS.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
Well, it has been a pleasure. I wish you much luck and success. And everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you've got any feedback or questions for me, please leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com. Otherwise, you can always DM me on Instagram at catherinemaley.mba, and we will talk again soon. Take care.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.